Democracy and the monetary system are institutions of the left. The state exists to make the agenda of the left possible. For without the state, liberalism and the left would collapse. But one of the most insidious claims made by the left is that we are all one people. Often this is said in reference to a nation or a communist rant against the state. This claim that there is one people is perpetuated by the doctrine of evolution and the claim we are all one species. All of these arguments rest on the premise that the human being is a physical thing defined by physical features, such as an upright stance and large brain. But if we reject evolution and the claim that mankind is inherently an organic being, the doctrine of the unity of all persons must collapse. It is true all human being has to have originated from the same source. It is not true that all human beings had the same history. The question is not what unites us, there are many things that do. The question is, what divides us, because if this is a substantial factor, all the things that unite us cannot undo the division. To confuse the issue, the left has created the artificial division of the political left and right and the division between capitalists and communists. But there are also racial and religious divisions. None of these divisions are important. They are distractions. The Bible tells us there are people who live by the flesh. They are physical in their perspective and phenomenologists in the way they think about reality. From the perspective of phenomenology, God cannot exist. If there is a physical race, then this race must be defined purely by physical features. This is Homo sapiens sapiens. Anthropologically, H. sapiens is defined by a large rounded brain case, lack of a brow ridge, a chin, and a narrow pelvis compared to other primates. It cannot be argued that all persons share these features, but that does not mean we are all one people or race. If one race is defined solely by physical factors, a race that is defined by spiritual elements is a different race of persons. It is logically incoherent for a race that rejects all metaphysical assumptions and spiritual beings be in the same class as a people who reject all that the other group embraces and embraces all the other group rejects. That is not how classificatory systems work. But these facts do not prove reconciliation is impossible. It does not demonstrate that when a Christian talks about "we the people," he is promoting reconciliation with Satan. To understand the degree of separation between the two groups, we must look at the implications of accepting the atheist agenda. If there is no God, those who do not believe in God need law, and they will need the state to exist as the lawgiver. Liberals live under the law because they must live under the law, they have no alternative. The creation and regulation of the state imposes costs on subjects, and this means the costs of the state must be externalized onto society and future generations. These truths cannot be avoided. The only alternative to the law and the regulatory state is to live in faith. But the state creates costs and risk, and these threats of loss prevent those who live under the state from living in faith. To live in faith means we trust one another. Those who live in faith do not need the state because we live in a relationship of trust. This living in faith is living in and through the church, which is an organization or a community based on faith. Needless to say, we cannot live in faith and be subjects beholden to the state. So there are two types of persons, or two races, each with their own culture and type of life. If we are under the state, we cannot live in faith. They are logically incompatible. The division that exists is not one created by the choices made by us. The division is logical and exists regardless of what we do or chose. We can live as subjects under the law of the state, or we can live in faith. If we live as subjects, we cannot live in faith. The very existence of the law and the state proves subjects do not have faith. Thus, the only unity is within the state and the abandonment of faith. But those in faith cannot reconcile with the state, and therefore cannot seek unity in the state or with those who are subjects of a state.